Welcome into your regularly scheduled Off the Leash. We had an emergency podcast episode yesterday because the Browns traded away Myles Garrett, and we're here to break it all down. I'm Leah Doherty, joined with Mark Schwab, OBR's Fred Greetham. We had a lot of questions after this trade. Mark and I were looking at each other yesterday saying, what the heck is going on? This feels like a slim return. Andrew Berry, though, was able to answer hopefully a good chunk of the questions, at least the reasoning behind why they made this trade. So I want to start off with that. Let's hear a little bit from Andrew Berry today, and then we can just jump right into it and get all of our reactions.
There are moments, particularly in my job, where, opportunities come up that, quite honestly, are unexpected. And they force you to stop and reevaluate and look at it and say, hey, is this something that could be, really beneficial to the team? And that was the case in this instance. I'd always told myself that if, we were ever in a position where we were going to trade Myles, three things would have to be true. Number one, it would have to have short and long-term benefits. Number two, as part of the trade, a young, cost-controlled star at a premium position would have to be included. And the third piece is that there would have to be premium draft capital. And there's a very small set of, deals that really satisfy those constraints. So when it got to the point with our negotiations with the Rams, when, all those things were satisfied, it really, caused us to take a step back and think about, really think about the decision. The opportunity was too great. It wasn't like a plan A going into the offseason. Quite honestly, we would have operated differently if it was. But sometimes things come across your path that you're not expecting, and you can't be so dogmatic in your strategy and planning that you can't adjust and be flexible to great opportunities. We did not blindside Myles with the news yesterday. Obviously, was a well-tenured member of the organization, someone that, we expect to retire Brown. So he was made aware about a week ago that it was a possibility. And that's a courtesy that, that obviously we owe him. So the communication was good with him. I understand the, emotional reaction of, Myles. Look, we've known him since he's 21 years old, coming out of Texas A&M. We've seen him grow up here and everything like that, and he's accomplished really great things for us on the field. And so there's always an emotional tie for someone who's going to be one of the franchise greats. So certainly understand that. In terms of the second part of your question, don't see it that way at all. We're really excited about Jared. We're really excited about this defense. I know Monk's really excited about bringing Jared into the organization. But everything's still right in front of us in terms of that regard. We made a trade with I guess multiple players and picks, and usually when you make these trades, you're completely trading off present for future. And to get a player like Jared in the deal where the defense still maintains its excellence, that was really attractive to us.
So that was a little bit from Browns general manager Andrew Berry today on the trade. Just to go over and refresh, Rams received Myles Garrett. Browns in term got Jared Verse, a 2027 first-round pick, 2028 second-round pick, and a 2029 third-round pick. Fred, you were at the press conference this morning, so what were your biggest takeaways from it?
Well, I see what he's selling. He's selling Jared Verse. I mean, he kept coming back to that. He really likes the guy, and I get that. And his tone almost was, maybe you guys don't know how good this guy is. And I get that. But turn it around. If you had Jared Verse and you traded him for Myles Garrett, wouldn't you think that would have been the steal, not the other way around? That's almost the vibe I'm getting, is you don't know what we got. Yeah, I get 3 draft picks, but you're talking about probably pick 30, 31, or 32 next year. That's not going to do much for you, in my opinion. Bottom line is, did they get better? Are they better today than they were yesterday? They're telling us they're trying to win this year. I don't think so.
Yeah, Fred touched on it there. My number one takeaway from this press conference was, wow, these guys are enamored with Jared Verse. Like, No, I haven't heard anyone say he's bad. Even I have obviously not been a fan of this trade. I've been pretty vocal of that. My thing is they didn't get enough. But in that's not saying Jared Verse is bad. I actually just don't think they got enough on top of Jared Verse. But they seem to think this guy is awesome. So while we're here on this is a graphic the Browns put out today on social media. And obviously they're hyping up their new guy, right? So it's 2025 season stats. 58 tackles, 80 total pressures, 3 forced fumbles, 83.9 overall PFF defensive grade, top 6 in the league in stops, hurries, hits, total pressures, and run-stop win rate. You know what word I never said there? Sacks. He's a guy that almost gets sacks.
Yeah.
They traded the guy who gets sacks for a guy that almost gets sacks. By the way, almost getting a sack is a thing. It does help. It changes the pocket, right? It can impact throws. It rushes a guy. That's all real. But he has to develop into a guy go from a pressure guy to a sack guy for this to come out, I think, smelling like a rose. I get it. He's good. Nobody's saying he's bad. I think most of us feel like they just didn't get enough on top of Jared Verse. The sharps love him. That's what the analytics people, that's why they're into this. A lot of the analytics crowd on social media, they're like, oh my, I can't believe you're, they're like talking down to you if you don't have Jared Verse up on this pedestal. The kid's a good-looking young player. He doesn't get sacks. I hope he starts to. 7.5 last year. By the way, that's not terrible, but that's not even a 10. That's not double digits. Well, he has had 12 sacks in 2 years.
Yeah, the opposite end for the Rams, I think, had 10.5, and some people were saying, well, he was getting the attention, not so much Verse. And again, I think he's a great player. It's like, oh, you added Jared Verse with Myles Garrett. No, you subtracted Myles Garrett. I mean, meanwhile, the Ravens added Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals added Dexter Lawrence. The Browns got Jared Verse, but they lost Myles Garrett. That's the only thing I'm saying is I don't know how this makes you better today. Again, I grew up, I'm tainted, especially with the Indians growing up. Every time they had a guy became a star, they traded him to the Yankees. Greg Nettles, Chris Chambliss. CC Sabathia, these guys just we're a farm system, and you're thinking, okay, you got a homegrown guy? No longer.
I think what was confusing to me is I didn't get a lot of clarity as to how this all came to be in terms of why they didn't choose to shop him around or why they didn't look at trading him when he had asked for a trade. I mean, Andrew Berry made it seem like almost kind of like you were talking about, you guys are crazy for not understanding how great of a deal this is. Obviously, we had to take this deal. Even if we shopped him around, we weren't going to get anything as good as this. And I'm sitting here thinking, what? And Fred and I were talking about it earlier, this is your best ship right here. This is your best trading piece right here is Myles Garrett. So if you're going to make a move and trade your best player, wouldn't you want to take your time to shop them around? And they truly felt like this was the best deal they could get. And then people were saying, well, the Rams kept hounding him. The Rams kept hounding him. Okay.
Right.
Teams were hounding him. Teams were hounding them last year for Myles Garrett. And Andrew Berry kept saying no every single time. So I think that's what I didn't get a lot of clarity on today was, well, he was clear they didn't shop him around. Why did you not shop him around? And I still didn't feel like I understand why this was a deal that they just couldn't walk away from.
Did we talk about it yesterday a few times? I'm like, I said this wasn't a Godfather offer, which is the offer you can't refuse. Andrew Berry came out and basically said, oh, no, this is the Godfather offer. I'm with you. I don't see it. I have had two major issues with this trade. One, I've talked about extensively. I don't think they got enough. But the second problem for me is, to me, it's just inconsistent messaging. The message about 15 months ago or whenever it was that he requested the trade and they said no and extended him, that's a clear message of we're not trading you. Here's a longer deal. We want you around to when we're going to be good.
Cleveland to Canton. That's
Nothing really happened over the course of the past 12, 14 months that should have changed that. Nothing should have happened. And you could say, well, they're rebuilding. Well, none of their other actions say they're rebuilding. This is the only veteran they've traded. Ward is still here. Delpit's still here. They didn't trade Njoku last year. A lot of the other veterans are still here. They've spent a lot of money in free agency. None of those things are the actions of a rebuilding team until you trade the guy who you only trade if you're rebuilding. So the messaging doesn't line up to me at all Along with that, I don't think they got enough. I'm with you. I just don't get it. Why are we talking about this?
And it's not a knock on Verse, like we've all talked about too. Like I think he's a great young player, but when this is your biggest bargaining chip you have, it just does not feel like they got enough. And maybe the part we don't understand, because they said Myles wasn't asking to leave. He wasn't asking to go. This was something we brought up to him about a week ago. It wasn't because he was upset, because we hired Todd Monken or XYZ or whatever. Him not being around for the offseason, that is typical. Like, he's been following the same offseason plan that he's done. It's not a surprise. He's not, voluntary workouts or XYZ. So I guess I'm curious, Fred, like, is there something we're missing? Like, did Myles not want to be here and we're just not talking about it?
I'll say this, as far as don't have any firsthand knowledge, but he kept saying today in the press conference that he couldn't believe, that how it opened up. They weren't looking at all that way. But you're the one that opened the contractual changes. That's telling the other teams, hey, there's a way maybe to pry him away, because we have a salary cap guy. The day that happened, he said he will be traded. There is no other reason to keep him on the team now other than that. And he was exactly right. They did it exactly the first day they could. With that being said, people are overlooking maybe a little bit with the Jim Schwartz thing. He wanted Jim Schwartz. Typically, he isn't at voluntary camp, and he got a brand new coach, brand new everything, and he didn't even stop by to say, hey, Myles Garrett, nice to meet you. So, yeah, he might not have asked to be traded, but he had to know, if this opens up this contract, I can get out of here, because it's not lipstick on a pig. But we know the way he went off on the Browns on Radio Row, nothing changed. They threw a lot of money at him. He checked the box for all the money in the world in my bank account, but still he's not satisfied. He comes back and goes, well, I want to go to a Super Bowl. I want to go to the championships. So that's where, they kind of checked all the boxes for him. To L.A., all this, Super Bowl. And the Browns, I don't know how they're better today. But I do think the contract thing opened it up. And then he got paid and nothing changed. He still wants to leave, and maybe the Browns knew this was percolating. They have another 3 in a year from now. He's a year older. I don't know. But I just thought, unless you solve the quarterback situation, and he was your best chance to do that, and I don't think a first-round pick in the 30s or 28 is going to get you up to get the Joe Burrow, if there is one, or whoever, because teams aren't going to trade it. So they're going to have to earn it the old-fashioned way, going 2-15.
And that was interesting, too, because you had asked about that in the press conference today, and Andrew Berry was like, well, I don't want to look ahead. We're not looking into the future or how we're going to play out these picks. But that's the reason you do this deal, is because how you can play those picks. This can't just be on Jared Verse alone. It's a pick. So I don't know.
Well, part of it is he's stuck, because everyone knows this is like what's the progressive ad where we all see it. We all see it. We all know what is wrong with them in the sense that they need a franchise quarterback. He can't say that, because the minute he starts talking about, well, we like this with this gives us more ammunition to go up and do these things, he is saying in a press conference, both Shador and Watson are not the guy, and he's publicly talking down on the guy, and he can't sue it. He can't do it. I get it. He can't do it, but we all have to go along with this ridiculous production that they might not be in the market for a quarterback. Are you kidding me? Come on, Andrew. We know it. You know it. We know it. Just go ahead and talk in your circles, and we'll talk about it here on the periphery.
And I just think it's interesting, and I believe him when he said that the conversation started after the draft, but they really had no intention of trading him at all. And I think that's the most surprising thing to me, is that we go from hard no, Cleveland to Canton, and then this is the deal that flips everything around for us. And I feel like I'm talking in circles because it still doesn't make sense.
I'm going to actually build on one point you mentioned, and then I guess we can close it, because you're right. You start to just go around because it doesn't make any sense. But he did say this in the presser, and you touched it, that the Rams kept calling. If that's all it takes, call the Kansas City Chiefs once a week from now till training camp. Maybe call the Chargers once a week, too, about Herbert. Because, hey, the Chargers haven't won anything with Herbert, so they should trade him. That's another reason I've heard the Browns. Yeah, call the Bengals once a week on Joe Burrow. Call the Ravens once a week. Just keep calling. Apparently, it's an effective strategy.
You just keep badgering them long enough,
It's like the 6-year-old that wants the candy bar at the store. Mom.
It'll wear you down eventually. My goodness. Well, we have lots more to talk about with this, but let's go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Mark Schwab, Leah Doherty, Fred Greetham with you, and a post-Myles Garrett trade episode of the program. True-false question of the week. This is Jared Verse-centric, because it's too easy to say the Browns will regret this trade. We've kind of just talked about that. True or false, Jared Verse will have, as long as he stays healthy, double-digit sacks his first year as a Cleveland Brown.
Double-digit sacks?
Double-digit sacks. He's had 4.5 and 7.5 in his 2 years in the league.
I say false.
False.
I say false. Based on the little stat line you read us the first go round, and there were no sacks in there. There were no sacks included in the graphic. Yeah, double digit. I would just say false. It'd be great. I mean, I'd love to say true and be optimistic, but I'm gonna go false. Fred.
False. I don't see him like magically, appearing that he gets pressures and all those things, which are good, but. Yeah, I mean, that's all the stats they're showing is with Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, and Jared Verse and the pressures and some of the things like that. It's great, but finishing is what it's about, in making that. So I don't think he'll get double digits at least this year.
And it will just be interesting. I mean, this is going to be a defense now led by like Mike Rutenberg, so there's just even more added questions to it of how they're going to look. And then now you add in this piece, and you have a brand new head coach. Dude, like it's all going to look different now.
It's very different. I'm going to say false as well. I do think he has. I think he has a very good chance to lead the team in sacks. I really want to know what Mason Graham puts together in his second year, and I think that's going to become. I want to know, and sometimes you get into this positionless stuff with edges. Are they really an end or an outside linebacker on that play? And I understand that to a degree, but we're just talking about him on the defensive line. Is he their best defensive lineman? Right now, he might be by year end. I want to know if Mason Graham is close to him or not. I'm going to say false. I think he's got a chance to do it, but if you put a gun to my head, I'll say no, and he finishes with like 8 or 9. Probably a team high. I'll bet he leads the team in sacks, but I want to know if somebody else gets pretty close to him, like Graham, or if Alex Wright, for crying out loud, he took strides last year. Does he come up and put together a nice year?
Mm-hmm. Fred, this was something that we had talked about yesterday, but I want to ask you this question: how do the Browns win this trade, in your opinion?
I'll stick with it. Is somehow, parlay this into acquiring a franchise quarterback, and I don't see how this particular thing, that's where I go back to, is hanging on to Garrett until where you draft and then you trade him to move up to get the guy. But I would say Verse, continues his projection. I know AB had the big stats. There's only 8 guys that have ever done Rookie of the Year defense and All-Pro or Pro Bowler, first ballot, the first 2 years. Yeah, it's some elite company, but, he's got to continue that trajectory. It kind of puts the pressure on him to make people forget about Myles Garrett because, I mean, that's about all that was worth watching the last half the year. Everybody was just tuning in to see him if he could get the sack record.
There is one other way. I mean, I said kind of along the same lines yesterday. We talked about this. You get lucky. There's a Lamar Jackson that falls late in the draft type of thing. There is one other route, and I do not want to put this out there like I'm rooting for this because it wouldn't be good. But they were in this scenario before with Houston. They traded the pick that turned into Deshaun Watson, and it looked like the Texans were going to be good. Watson blew out his knee. The Texans collapsed, and it turned into the 4th pick in the draft, and the Browns got Denzel Ward out of it. They got dumb lucky because the quarterback got hurt. If something happens to the Rams, whether it's Stafford or something like that, it greatly alters their season, and suddenly that pick now turns into, 10, 12. Or maybe now if you got you've earned 7 or 8 and you've got 10 or 12 or something like that, maybe now you can get up into some striking. But just to throw that out there, I feel like a jerk just saying that because now you're rooting probably for something bad to happen to one of the Rams. I don't want anything bad to happen to one of those guys. They work hard. They're good dudes out there. We got no problems with them. But that's another way. It's a way to back into it. I'm only bringing it up because we saw it a few years ago. Mm-hmm. They got kind of lucky. Deshaun Watson got hurt, and the Browns got Denzel Ward out of it because the Texans collapsed.
Yeah. Well, we've heard from the Browns side of things, hearing from Andrew Berry. Myles Garrett had his introductory press conference today with the Rams, and we will hear from him right after the break. All right, welcome back into Off the Leash. Let's go ahead and get you out to Los Angeles, where Myles Garrett is having an introductory press conference as the newest member of the Rams.
Very excited to be here. It's an honor and a blessing to be in this building. I have a lot of respect for all the guys here, from the coaching staff, management, and many of the players. I've got to see it firsthand. And, it's a very quality team, quality business, and I like the way things operate. And I'm looking forward to help bring a championship here to LA. I found out about a week ago that this was even a possibility, and it was a surprise. It was a bit of excitement. Being in LA, a lot of roots here, and knowing that there's a winning culture and some great teammates and great coaches here. I was definitely looking forward to the opportunity, and God willing to happen. Since the very beginning, it's always been about winning, and it just breaks down to the timing of everything. What does it realistically look like for to be a winner now, and to have a opportunity to do that immediately. That was an opportunity that was just too difficult to pass up. And I always have love in my heart for Cleveland City, community, all its players, and everything else. But the opportunity to come here, have a immediate and profound impact on this team. It was something I just had to move forward with. I don't take my time in Cleveland for granted. I did love being there. My family had become really a part of the community. You definitely had started to plant roots, had a home, and just becoming friends with all the people in your neighborhood, and getting to know people, and getting out, and just feeling like this is your second home. This stuff like that. It tears at you to leave and to break away, but that's just part of the things you learn to have to adjust to as you grow up and learn you have to move on. I see a position to solidify myself here as well, among the very greats. I still have plenty of great years in front of me, and being able to cement that legacy not only as a football city here in LA, but as an individual, winning DPOY and a Super Bowl or more. Those things are definitely pressing on my mind, and I have definitely a bit of urgency to do it, and do it right away.
All right, you just heard from Myles Garrett, his thoughts on being the newest member of the Rams. Thanks so much for listening to Off the Leash. Until next week, we'll see you then.